So can you deep squat? And when I talk about deep squat, I'm not necessarily talking about the squats that you do if and when you go to the gym, even though those are good. And I think that's part of the conversation as well. But when I talk about deep squatting, I mean, can you in a standing position go all the way down, keeping your heels on the floor and sit with your butt essentially on your legs. Now I know for a lot of people just the thought of that is kind of unimaginable. And I'll admit sometimes for me that kind of hurts a little bit too. But let me tell you why I'm asking you that. So you might remember maybe about 10, 15 years ago, probably about 15 years ago, whenever the whole discussion about how we're sitting too much started to come out and how, like how much sitting for hours a day, I'm sitting right now, can mess up your health. Listen to this that I got from this article here where I was kind of reading up for this little recording I'm doing here. It says sitting in postures that do not require much muscle activity, like sitting in a chair, leads to reduced local muscle metabolism with detrimental effects on lipids or fats, lipid and glucose metabolism. Okay, so that just basically means it negatively affects how your body can metabolize fats and glucose sugars. Detrimental effects on blood flow and endothelial health. The endothelial has to do with the lining of your blood vessels. And so the health of your blood vessel walls is important because that's where a lot of high blood pressure comes from, or even just other bad things with blood vessels that can lead to, strokes and whatnot. When the endothelium is impaired, lead to constricted blood vessels and things like that, and regulation of inflammation. Okay. So literally, we sit so much, y'all. The large majority of us have jobs where we sit all day. And I admit, even me here, I try to break up the monotony with exercise sessions because I exercise a lot of times I break up my exercise into like 2 or 3 sessions a day. And then I try to go outside and get some gardening work in. But even still, I know that I sit too much. And it's so detrimental to our health. It is so detrimental, but yet we just kind of ride with it because it's a norm of our culture. But if you know me, you know that I'm all about like bringing out and addressing the very practical things that we can do and should already have been doing to make our health better rather than just putting all of our reliance on our healthcare system. Okay. Now, if you have ever like looked at like History Channel or some of these other things on TV or online that kind of talk about different cultures around the world, you'll notice that a lot of people in a lot of cultures that are not Western cultures, they don't sit in chairs like we do at all. They tend to squat, deep squat, and that's their sitting. And so literally they'll sit like that. Anytime they sit, that's how they do it. And they don't really have chairs around. We were watching a documentary recently that was talking about long-lived cultures around the world, the blue zones, and this particular part of the documentary was talking about Okinawa in Japan, and it was showing all these older people. All of them were either in their late 80s or somewhere in their 90s or in their hundreds, and they were sitting on the ground, deep squatting at that age. Now, if this is unimaginable for you, think about this. This is something that is uncommon to us because of our culture. We when we use a restroom, we sit on these tall thrones and whatnot. Which I've read is not necessarily like of Western origin. It actually comes from as far back as like Mesopotamia and whatnot. However, it's something that we have kind of like really, really capitalized on and built on. And then we sit in chairs the way that we do, but you're supposed to be able to squat like that. And When you sit down in a chair like we do, hours a day, it is detrimental to your health. Not just from the standpoint of inactivity, but also because one, in contrast to squatting the way people do, maybe in Africa, Asia, Middle East, and whatnot, sitting in a chair deactivates a lot of your muscle groups. It's not to say that your muscles are very active in the deep squat position, but they're low level active still. So, some of your leg muscles, glutes, are still actually active in the squatted position, but people are able to still sit in those positions comfortably. Whereas when you sit down, it's just like whenever you lift weights. Lifting weights whenever you're kind of sitting against something or whatever, like it actually deactivates some muscle groups and it allows you to kind of like mainly focus on certain groups because you're putting your body against something to kind of rest some of your weight on that, and so your body doesn't have to stabilize and use a lot of muscles like it normally does. So sitting is doing that to a great degree for a long period of time, and it's just not, our bodies just aren't adapted to that. So this is why when you're generally inactive, it causes health problems. It causes your body to become less efficient because your body's not adapted to be inactive like that. So you're literally deactivating everything kind of like from your stomach down. Your abs are not active, your glutes are not active, your quads, your hamstrings, none of that stuff is active. Okay? None of it is. And these are the major muscle groups of your body. Not only that, but you lose flexibility, especially in like your hip flexors, your hamstrings. And this is really kind of something for me because I'm needing to develop my hamstring flexibility more, my trunk flexibility here. Um, and sitting the way that we do makes you less flexible. So it leads to immobility. Not squatting actually makes you worse at squatting. It makes it hurt. A lot of times we think, well, I don't squat because it hurts. But as I saw in this article that I was just reading, I'm going to link to, squatting is literally hard because we don't do it. That's why. Not squatting is what often can lead to joint problems and whatnot, because your body's literally made to do that. And again, when I talk about squatting, I'm talking about you're standing and then you squat down, heels never leaving the ground. If your heels leave the ground, then that means that you're kind of dealing with some level of inflexibility. I think especially like in your hip flexors and whatnot. But heels on the ground and you come all the way down like this. And I know it just seems like your kneecaps will just blow out or whatever, but squatting is a part of having healthy knees. Okay. So I just heard somebody's question. Well, okay, well, you kind of have me thinking about how in the world I incorporate squats. Like, how can I actually do that? Now, for sure, you have to be careful. Let me say this too. Sometimes also the reason that you have knee pain is not so much of because it's not as much because of something that's anatomical or like injury. It could be because of your diet as well, because your diet is too inflammatory. So think about that. Your diet could be too inflammatory, and that could be causing you to deal with some of the knee problems that you have. And then you clean up your diet, next thing your knees don't hurt like they used to. So as far as working to get to like a deep squat, which I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of build a deep squat here at my desk. But what I would recommend is that you ease into it. I think one way to do it is by incorporating squats into your routine. 2 days a week, I'm doing working my legs and I'm doing like squats. So usually I do now I was formerly doing pause squats. Now I'm just kind of working on squats that are like slow repetitions where it takes me probably about 6 seconds to do one squat. About 3 seconds down, and then about 3 seconds up, 2 or 3 seconds. And so I do 100 of those twice a week. And so, you may not do that, or you may start doing squats and then you don't go as low. But you got to get started somewhere. So what I would do is I would practice with whatever range of motion is comfortable for you. And maybe set off to do like 2 sets of 10 of that. Every other day. And then just working with that same 2 sets of 10, just kind of keep on working into going lower and lower and lower as your body allows. And also, don't underestimate the possibility that you need to change your diet to a more anti-inflammatory diet. That means you're not doing a lot of sugar, you're not doing a lot of starch, you're doing a lot of vegetables, making sure you don't have any sort of food intolerances or things that you need to watch out for, like gluten, and dairy and nightshades and things like that. You might have to like look out for stuff like that. But anyhow, I'm just saying all that to say it appears to me that deep squatting is one of those things that we all should have already been doing. Even think about the fact that toddlers naturally do that. They naturally do that with ease, and they'll get up from a deep squatted position. That deep squatting is common a lot of times and helpful in childbirth. Okay. And so you know, and then a lot of places, like, again, when people go to the restroom, they have like they go in holes. And I know it seems just weird and we kind of consider it primitive because we don't do it here. It's not primitive, it's just relieving yourself, man. So anyway, just saying all that to say, when you're squatting like that and doing that instead of sitting, that's a whole lot better for your health than just sitting in chairs all day. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's okay to sit down sometimes. It's just that we've abused that for sure, and our health suffers because of it. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. I'm going to link to a couple of articles that I read associated with this. Be informed. Take responsibility for your health. Y'all have a good morning. If you like this content, you might also be interested in one of my books. Learn how you can take steps literally today to successfully manage, control, and overcome common issues such as high blood pressure, diabetes, and belly fat. It's all about putting power back in your hands to improve your own health. Get your book copy today by the links in the description or by visiting SeanMcClendon.com/books. Also, don't forget, hit the like button and subscribe, and join my email list at SeanMcClendon.com/subscribe.